Hey everybody, today I'm talking with Eitan. He's a Triple Crown hiker. He's now living on a boat. He's got some great adventures coming up and he's done some absolutely epic ones in the past. So we're just going to get into it and like, share, and subscribe. Help the channel grow. Thanks. Here we go.
Well, Eitan, or AKA Trout, has agreed to join me for a few minutes, and we're going to talk just a little bit of background. I've been peeling through this guy's Instagram, and Triple Crowner, and now he's on a boat. Did the AT in 2016, the PCT in 2018, and then the CDT in 2021. Dude, my hat's off to you, brother. That's amazing.
Appreciate it, Jerome. Thanks for having me on today.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I guess I just to start it off, what was the impetus to go out and start hiking these trails and go for the Triple Crown?
When I first started, I never intended on doing the Triple Crown. It was just, I had graduated from high school back in 2016 and decided to start hiking, do kind of a gap year before college. And once I was on the Appalachian Trail, once I finished, it was really no question. 4 months later, I was on the Pacific Crest Trail and made it part way that first year. And then I ended up getting off trail, and the following year decided to restart it from the beginning. And then after that, lived in a van for a bit, and then sold the van, and Continental Divide was really the only other option.
Well, it is funny how these things sort of, like, one adventure can lead to the next, because, for me, when I did the AT in 2012, when I finished, I was northbound, and I got up to Katahdin, and my mind was just blown at how good it felt to go and do this completely, I wouldn't call it a useless thing, but as far as like societal norms, it's sort of considered like, well, why would you do that? You should have a job and you should be saving for the future. But it was a life-changing thing for me.
Yeah, it was. I mean, just getting out there and experiencing that, especially, when you're fresh out, like that was my first time really away from home, and just going out there and doing that, it just blew my mind and instilled that drive in me to just keep on traveling.
Wow. And you were what, 18 years old when you hit the AT?
Yep, I was 2 weeks out of high school, and my dad flew up with me to Maine. We explored Maine a little bit, and he climbed Katahdin with me and did the rest of Baxter State Park, and then he flew back to Georgia, and I walked back. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. What do you have a favorite trail out of the three? I mean, I know they're all really different, but was there one, if you had to choose one to do again, could you pick one?
Probably the Continental Divide. I'd probably go northbound. I did it south. I mean, I want to do all three again, the opposite direction than I did them last time.
Wow.
Go for the double triple, but that's after sailing, so like retirement and all that. Retirement.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
But yeah, the Continental Divide Trail was just raw. It was brutal, and I hated it and I loved it, and yeah, it's a fickle beast.
Is that one absolutely 100% complete, or are there still gaps in it where you're essentially orienteering?
Yeah, there's gaps in it here and there. I mean, if you download Gut Hook or Far Out guides now, you still have a map. You still have a map to follow, but there's a lot of sections like the Big Sky alternate that I took because of wildfires. That was roads, dirt roads, trails, wayfind, just like picking your route finding, bushwhacking, and that was 400 miles long or so. And I didn't see another hiker on that until I got almost into Wyoming. Yeah.
Holy cow. Well, I was looking on Wikipedia just to do a little research on them. And yeah, I mean, they were saying, I think like 150 people attempt it each year or in the last few years, and only about half of them, I think, actually complete it, because that's daunting. It's over 3,000 miles.
Yeah. And it's not the same as the other trails where like you have your community the whole time. Like there's a lot of times on the CDT where it's like if you leave those one or two people you're with, you're not going to find the next group for a month or 2 months or 3 months or whatever, you know?
Wow. How does the provisioning and stuff work on the CDT? Because I know there's pretty big, huge gaps in between little towns and things like that. Like the AT, it's every couple days, but
yeah, the CDT is usually for the most part around 100 miles, especially up north. It was about 100 to, I think the Bob Marshall was 180 or so. I cut it down by going like 30 miles off trail on a dirt road to a small town for 4th of July.
Nice.
So I cut it down to, I think, 120 or 140 miles but yeah, there were a lot more long carries on the CDT, but I mean, you kind of from the start have to be trucking along doing 20s, mid 20s or so, and then pick that up because winter is, you're constantly running from weather, which, I mean, I'm sure on the Appalachian Trail going north, you were chasing winter the whole way to Katahdin, and then on your round the world sail, I'm sure you were running from winter the whole time.
Oh yeah, you're essentially you're racing to get to Cape Horn before the southern hemisphere's autumn comes in and the storms start raging really hard. And yeah, so yeah, you are kind of always racing Mother Nature on these big hikes as well as the really big sails.
Yeah.
Oh man, it's so crazy. Are there any I know on the AT you might run into some black bear, and up north, the big danger I think is really the moose. But I would think on the CDT is that you get into grizzly country up north, don't you?
That was my first time in grizzly country, and you're in grizzly country for about 1,000 miles.
Wow.
So when I started at the Canadian border, and then, you leave grizzly country just south of like Yellowstone, which there's still a couple there, but in Montana, I think I saw 4 or 5 on the trail, and had some closer encounters. Nothing too scary or too bad, but there was one night I definitely packed up camp and hiked on through the night because it kept coming through camp.
Really? How big
And I
of
was
a bear?
on that alternate where there was no one around, so I was just like, geez. I'm getting up above tree line. I want to see what's around me because this thing keeps walking by my tent over and over again.
Holy cow, that is so crazy. I couldn't even imagine. Did you get good eyesight on it? Was it pretty big?
Oh yeah. It was a full moon, so it was coming up and it was sitting in front of my tent. And I could see my bear hang my food up in the tree, and I'd just sit there and look at it and I'd see fiddle around, kind of put its arms up on the tree, look around, then it would walk away, and then 30 minutes later, an hour later, it's back and it's doing it again. And third time I was like, oh, I'm gone. And that 5 miles getting up above tree line was pretty daunting. The whole time I'm like, just
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I couldn't even imagine because I mean, like I said, I mean, black bear and stuff, typically they're just gonna run as fast as they can away from you. But a grizzly doesn't fear a person and might actually sort of think, oh, there's a tasty treat right there.
Yeah, I had bear spray on my head ready to go. That was the only time I ever took the safety off of the bear spray.
Oh wow.
Because I was just ready. I was like, I'm not taking chances right now.
Well, and I know on the Pacific Crest Trail, there's a lot of it that you actually have to wear or use a bear canister for your food. Is the CDT the same?
Yeah. There's a couple small sections on the CDT that it's required. If you're through hiking, you can do that mileage in a day. So, it could be required for this 15-mile stretch, but if you're doing 35 miles that day, you just
go for it. Yeah.
It's only if you're camping overnight in that section. So I started with a bear canister because my friend told me they were required in Glacier, and I believed him on the CDT, and so I brought it, and he actually started the trail with me, and he didn't bring his bear canister, and I was like, come on, bro, like, pounds. When I started that trail, I called 2 of my friends. They had already done the CDT, and I was like, hey, thinking about doing the CDT, and they both met me there, and started the CD2 with me, and they were both shooting for another through hike, and they both ended up having to get off for different reasons. But it's pretty easy to suck good friends into a good through hike.
Yeah, it is. It definitely is. I've remained pretty close with quite a few of the people that I hiked with, and some of these guys I only actually hiked with them, maybe a week or two out of the whole AT. But one guy, his trail name was Bojangles, and he actually came on a trip from South Carolina, sailing nonstop up to Maine. And
that's sweet.
yeah, he had a blast, dude. He lives down in Texas. He shows up with like 24 packs of Lone Star beer, and he's like, "Let's do this." It was pretty awesome. Cool. Oh man. Well, one of the things, I mean, peeling through your Instagram, it was great. I mean, you've got snippets from all 3 different trails, and then you've got the sailing stuff as well. And one of the things that I sort of saw, I don't know if it was one of the comments or the descriptions, but you talked about the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. And I know when I'm out at sea, it's pretty much, I always describe it's like an emotional roller coaster. But I've always found that the good times are so much better because you have to usually fight through some really crummy stuff to get there. And it sounds like, is that something that you would find and out on the trail, and sort of I don't know, for me it was like a realization, and it sort of changed my outlook on things.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, those highs are so much better because of everything that you go through to get there. I mean, it's not just like a physical battle. It's a mental battle, and you're constantly battling to stay in it to, get through these tough times. And then, you catch that perfect sunset, and, the water's calm, or you're sitting up on top of a mountain and there's no wind, and, it makes it so worth it when you struggle and fight for what you're trying to achieve. And then when you get there and you're like, oh man, like, yeah.
Yeah. And it's like this elation, and like after you've done it enough, you realize I could be watching this sunset. If I just drove up this mountain and I saw it, it'd be one thing, but having to hike all the way through that storm to get up here, and now I get to enjoy it, it's like tenfold better. It's just,
yeah,
I don't know. It's an absolute huge benefit, I think, for sort of rolling the dice and taking the leap of faith and basically hitting up an adventure like you do. This is great.
Yeah.
So can you tell us about the boat you're on?
Yeah, I'm on a 1967 Bianca 27. It was built out in Denmark. Someone at some point sailed it across the Atlantic, and it spent about 20 years in the Caribbean, just island hopping and stuff, and then made its way up here to Florida, and it was sitting at a dock and just as a weekender. And I found it, I bought it, and yeah, I've been in love with the boat ever since I've been on it. It's taken me. I've sailed it up to Crystal River. I'm in Gulfport, Florida right now. I went up to Crystal River, which is 100 or so miles sail, and then came back down, and I'm getting ready next week to take off south to the Keys, and then cross over to Mexico, and eventually over to Guatemala.
Wow. Okay. Well, that was going to be my next question. I was like, wow. Okay. So what's the game plan? And so that's for this season. Do you have any sort of overarching sort of in the future plans with sailing adventures?
Yeah, I'd really like to go around the world. I don't know if I'm going to do it on this boat or not. This is a great boat, but I would definitely need to do like a full refit to it to really get it ready for a long-term offshore passage like that. But the main reason for going to Guatemala is I heard hauling out was really cheap. So I need to remove some through holes and glass them over, and then bottom paint and all that. I think the last time the bottom was painted was over 10 years ago. So
wow.
So I scrape it every week or two.
I was gonna say that's a little
there's no paint left.
That's a little maintenance for sure. Oh man.
Yeah.
Okay, so you get down to Guatemala, you're there for the rest of the winter, and then I mean after that, I guess the hurricane season. Are they affected by the hurricane season down there?
Not up the Rio Dulce. They've never been hit by a hurricane up there. It's about 40 miles upriver into Lake Isabel.
Oh, okay.
But I don't know if I'll stay there for the entirety of hurricane season or like hop down to, Panama from there and spend hurricane season there. Really depends how long I'm in the yard and how much money I have left.
Yeah, well, that's always a deciding factor.
That's always
for sure.
Yeah.
Well, can I ask you? You have one clip on your Instagram, and you're anchored, and it is blowing like crazy. What was the deal with that? Holy smokes!
That was probably about a year ago now. It was just a random storm that came in. It was supposed to be like, just a regular thunderstorm, and it was like 65 knots of wind or so.
Wow.
There were boats dragging everywhere, just passing it, going over onto the beach, hitting up against the seawall and stuff. Yeah, it was pretty wild. My inflatable was just flying in the air behind the sailboat. Yeah. But yeah, actually, I also rode out Hurricane Nicole out here a couple months ago. I didn't ride out Ian. I put Ian, I put the boat back in the mangroves and got really lucky. And then for Nicole, it was supposed to be 3 hours long or so, and it was like 20 hours long. And I rode that out on the boat in the middle of the bay. I went and anchored a little further away from most people, and yeah, my dinghy sunk within like an hour. It was flipped and went down. So then I just rode the rest of it out on the boat.
Holy smokes. Wow. Dude, you got to bring your boat up to Maine for the old hurricane season. We never get hit up there. Knock on wood. That's where I haul out, is up in a little town called Rockland, right?
Okay, cool.
Mid-coast Maine. And yeah, pretty protected, but you have to get out of there early enough so that you don't get trapped and stuck in weather like you see behind me here. That was actually only maybe 30 to 35 knots of wind, and but it was in the Gulf Stream, so it was a pretty bad situation.
When did you sail down from Maine?
I took off November 14th, and then I was severely knocked down and damaged in the Gulf Stream on the 20th of November. And then it took another 15 or 18 days to get back to South Carolina. I lost all my solar, the gallows, AIS aerial, everything. It was pretty nuts. I'll send you a link to the video of that night. It was pretty nuts.
Yeah, I'll check that out. That sounds
Well, I guess just to wrap it up, is there any advice you would give to anybody who's sort of thinking about, going for either big hikes or just wanting to take off and do some adventure? Because you seem like from the get-go, you've always been game to just go out there and get it done.
Yeah, I mean, I'd never been sailing before I bought a sailboat, and I bought it and moved on to it immediately and didn't know what I was doing. So I think if you have a dream and there's something you want to do, you got to go for it, or else eventually you're not going to be able to do it. And when I first started hiking, there are a bunch of older people coming up to me and say, "Oh, I wish I did something like this when I was your age." And you don't have forever, and you can't just like tiptoe through life because the end result's the same. So you might as well just go full send.
Yeah. Hey, I couldn't agree
do it
more.
Smartly though. Be safe while you do it, but test your boundaries and just go for it. And yeah,
untie those lines, lace up those boots, and just get out there.
Get out there and go for it.
Awesome, man. Well, I really appreciate you spending some time, and yeah, like I said, I'll put in the description and everything, so like your Instagram. I don't know, do you have a YouTube channel or anything?
I'm just on Instagram right now, Trout the Landfish.
Okay.
But yeah, maybe YouTube at some point. We'll see.
Yeah, you never know. People like living vicariously through some of these strange lives that we lead. So people love it when you share the stuff. So that's great. Well, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. And yeah, man, good luck with everything. Be safe out there. And most importantly, have fun.
I appreciate it. Same to you, brother.
All right.